Dying of the Light is a science fiction novel by George R.R. Martin, published in 1977. It takes place in the Thousand Worlds universe and is set on the fringe planet of Worlorn during the post-interregnum period, around the year AI 600. It is about a man named Dirk Tolarian who is summoned across the galaxy to Worlorn by a whisper jewel held by a love he thought he'd lost. But he discovers that Worlorn is dying, and Gwen Delvano is no longer the woman he once knew. Dying of the Light was first serialized in abridged form under the title After the Festival in the April through July 1977 issues of Analog Science Fiction and Fact. This serialized title refers to the festival of 14 worlds that precedes the story. In October of that year, an unabridged version of the novel, Dying of the Light, was published by Simon & Schuster. The novel's title is drawn from Dylan Thomas's 1947 poem, Do Not Go Gentle into That Good Night, which contains the lines, quote, Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light, end quote. By the same token, the novel is about a series of characters facing the existential angst of failed relationships, dying cultures and worlds, and the abyss of a cold, uncaring universe, but choosing to persevere and meet the uncertain future anyway. In Dying of the Light, Martin poses several challenging existential questions. For example, he asks, how can we reconcile our ideals with reality? The protagonist Dirk has an idealized vision of Gwen, whom he calls Jenny. However, Gwen is her own person, with her own needs and wants. It is revealed that Dirk's inability to accept Gwen as she is, and her inability to conform to his idealized perception, is the reason their relationship failed in the first place. Likewise, Jan has an idealized vision of what Kevlar culture was and what it could be, but must contend with what it currently is, brutal, regressive, and self-destructive. At the beginning of the story, Dirk is again attempting to impose an idealistic narrative, namely, that Gwen wants him back, but is being held captive by the brutish Jan Vickery, from whom he must rescue. However, reality proves to be more complicated and less romantic. It was not Gwen who activated the whisper jewel to call Dirk, and Jan is not the villain he had expected. Dirk has no clear role in this world, which contributes to his aimless, disillusioned state throughout the novel. Another question that Martin poses is, how can we find meaning or purpose in a universe that seems so fragile and chaotic? The cities of Worlorn and the Festival of the Fringe were meant to be a celebration of life and a demonstration of the best art, architecture, music, food, and science that the surrounding worlds had to offer. It succeeded in being all of those things, but only temporarily. The brief window in which multiculturalism and creativity was celebrated has ended and been replaced by violence and death. Does this regression suggest that carnage is the natural state of existence? The festival cities now stand empty and decaying, reflecting the impermanence of the civilizations that built them, and their culture, histories, memories, and lives, which are threatened with equally grim fates. Like Worlorn, the entire universe may one day become uninhabitable. The prospect gives terrifying form to T.S. Eliot's passage, quote, This is the way the world ends, not with a bang, but a whimper, end quote. Names and their meanings play an important role throughout Dying of the Light. Jan announces his full name as, quote, Jantony Riv Wolf High Iron Jade Vickery, which conveys information about his personality, rank, and holdfast coalition. However, he and Gwen both contest the names bestowed upon them. Jan rejects the way he was raised to glorify violence and practice xenophobia, and travels to Avalon to educate himself and learn about other cultures, before returning to High Kavalan with the goal of reforming his people. Gwen rejects the idealized role of Jenny that Dirk has cast for her, leaving Avalon to become her own person. Foreigners like Dirk are derided by some Kavalar as being mockmen, which are legendary beings bereft of any fixed codes and who have the ability to change their shape. This belief suggests that the Kavalar harbor an existential fear of altering or severing the link between names and concepts. The irony is that traditionalist Kavalar, such as Braith, often ignore, reject, or coerce aspects of reality that fail to fit their code. In a broader sense, the names of Worlorn cities are remembered, but now that the buildings and streets have been abandoned, they no longer embody the meanings behind those names. The various phenomena Dirk witnesses while he passes through the cities evokes this quandary. For example, Crian Lamia was built so that wind would produce music as it passed through its towers. However, the city is now empty, and soon the planet will be too, meaning that the music is being produced with no one around to hear it. And if no one is hearing it, how can it be recognized as music? What meaning do the sounds contain or evoke without ears or minds or hearts to decipher them? Dying of the Light is deeply elegiac in its tone and theme. The fading world of Worlorn serves as a backdrop and metaphor for the failed relationship of Dirk and Gwen. After they flee Lartane, the couple attempts to rekindle their relationship, but like the planet they are fleeing across, they gradually realize how hollow their former love has become. The planetary decay also reflects the dying culture of the Kavalar. Jan Vickery concludes that his people will need to change their customs in order to survive. Most of the other Kavalar characters reject Jan's argument, and all of them end up dead. Nevertheless, Jan and Gwen survive and manage to escape the planet with Dirk's help. This ending, while ambiguous, suggests that there is hope for people to transcend their circumstances and change their fate. Ultimately, the novel seems to suggest that people are a combination of the names and meanings assigned to them by their respective society, and the level to which they choose to question and evaluate the legitimacy of these names, meanings, and the assumed links between them. Dying of the Light contains several allusions to the legend of King Arthur. For example, Gwen Delvano's name resembles that of Lady Guinevere, the wife of King Arthur. Jan Vickery, a visionary leader of High Kavalan, plays the part of the king. Meanwhile, Dirk Tolarian plays Lancelot, the man with whom Gwen enters into a dangerous love affair. Like the legend, this affair inadvertently causes the deaths of many characters and contributes to the downfall of the kingdom. Additionally, the name Avalon, the planet where Dirk's and Gwen's love first kindled, is also taken from the legend, as the place where King Arthur's sword Excalibur was forged. The novel also contains possible allusions to Michael Curtis's 1942 film Casablanca. Dirk is like Rick Blaine, a former romantic turned bitter over being abandoned by his lover. Gwen is Isla Lund, who suddenly re-enters his life, stirring up unresolved feelings between the two characters. Jan is Victor Laszlo, the charismatic revolutionary and the man for whom Gwen leaves Dirk. Both stories are set against the backdrop of wide-scale conflict. Like Rick, Dirk still loves his ex-girlfriend, but realizes that there are bigger things at stake, that her and her husband are meant to be together, and chooses to help them escape together, in both cases through the air. Additionally, the theme song for Casablanca, As Time Goes By Herman Hupfeld, contains the lyrics, quote, "It's still the same old story, a fight for love and glory," end quote, which Martin has cited as the fundamental truth of all good stories. If you would like to know more about the Thousand Worlds universe, please visit GRRM-1000-worlds.fandom.com.